Right, good morning. I've got a tie on today because I had to go to work, and it tends to fool people into believing that you know what you're doing when you dress appropriately. Right, I was quite excited about actually doing this today, and yesterday I was dreading it, so maybe starting to not be quite so bad to go on this camera thing. Today I wanted to talk about Tourettes Syndrome, because I'm not diagnosed with Tourettes Syndrome, but when I did have my diagnosis done, which took about a year to have done, I was told that I was on borderline case on Tourette's Syndrome and ADHD or something like that, ADHD, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. ADH is attention deficit, maybe just hyperactive. I don't know. Anyway, that was something that was on board a borderline diagnosis. So I'm going to read from the NHS website because I want to put a foundation of a wise, stable definition that's correlated by the government as a basis for everybody to see and understand, or to hear and understand. And I can obviously then make videos and talk about how I'm affected by some of these things and how you might find that you're affected by them if you listen to this. Because by reading this, I've just had a quick browse over it, and I've found that actually it's quite relevant, more relevant than I thought. I think we always assume people with Tourette's are those cool people who go into shops and shout and swear and, just like, oh, I think they're brilliant. I'd love friends with Tourette's Syndrome. I think I would feel quite comfortable shopping with them. So Tourette's Syndrome. Tourette's Syndrome is a condition that causes a person to make involuntary sounds and movements called tics. So immediately that's automatically, we also assume these people who say loads of swear words. That's not the case. In fact, actually, I was reading down lower here and it says that it's only 1 in 10 people with Tourette's Syndrome who are affected by the swearing, compulsions. Interestingly enough, especially if you've got kids, this is quite an interesting website. It usually starts during childhood, but the tics and other symptoms usually improve after several years and sometimes go away completely. Oh, I'm still waiting. Now, I would say that when I first ever went to school, whatever age that is, 5 or something, 5 or 6, that I knew that I had these tics and things. I was aware of them, and when I went to school, obviously I was bullied and made fun of. You go to school as a blank canvas, you don't realise what you do might not be the same as every other child. Of course, your mum and dad accept you and love you however you may behave, as long as it's not too naughty. So then I was made aware by other children who mimicked the things I was doing and automatically singled me out to be unusual and strange, and that's the way it goes. There's no cure for Tourette's Syndrome, but treatment can help manage symptoms. So that's encouraging, isn't it? People with Tourette's Syndrome may also have obsessive compulsive disorder and attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or learning difficulties. So I would agree that those two first things I mentioned, I can relate to having those. The learning difficulties, well, I don't necessarily think I think the learning difficulties quite often are caused because of the two things: the obsessive compulsive disorder, the Tourette's, making noises and silly twitches and stuff, and then attention deficit. Well, if you're not paying attention, you're not going to learn. So, you're going to learn, but it's going to cause difficulty. So they may be part and parcel of the same thing. Symptoms of Tourette's Syndrome. Tics are the main symptom of Tourette's Syndrome. I only learned about a year ago, that tics were actually the habits, not little creatures with 8 legs. They usually appear in childhood between the ages of 2 and 14. Around 6 years is the average. Well, that's what I've just said. People with Tourette's syndrome have a combination of physical and vocal tics, quite often referred to as motion tics or vocal tics. Examples of physical tics include blinking, yeah, definitely related to that one. Eye rolling, grimacing, yeah. Shoulder shrugging, yeah, definitely. Jerking of the head or limbs. Man, it's funny because I can tell you some really embarrassing and funny stories. I was a little bit braver about some of the silly things I've done. Especially, what's really quite amusing is, I think last week I jumped for some reason. I just felt I had to jump, and then I thought someone might be watching me, so I shouldn't do it. So therefore, I had to do it again. I had to jump about 3 times across the car park, and in a suit, and I just tried to cover it up by pretending I had maybe got a drawing pin in my shoe. So I looked at my shoe afterwards and pretend to pull something out and throw it away, in case somebody was looking and wondered why is that guy jumping 3 times in the car park in a suit. Touching objects and other people. Yeah, touching objects, right. Oh, the worst object I've had to touch would be when I was fixing an electrical item, and I touched the 240 volts, and immediately I knew that I had to do it again to balance the number out. And I think that was when I was quite young, and I realised that is not normal, and there's something not quite right there, and obviously something very strong and compelling to make you want to do something that's actually really scary and hurt yourself. And I think, just veering off the subject here, that's the difference between, call it Tourette's and OCD, they all some sort of merge into each other. When I've tried to explain to people what OCD is really like, say you've got an addiction to something, because OCD is like an addiction, but it's an obsession. And the difference between an addiction and an obsession is an addiction, like say drinking or drugs, you actually want to do that. You want to drink, you want the high, you want the fantastic feeling or whatever it is. It's obviously not good for your health, and people take it to extremes and damage themselves and kill themselves. With OCD, it's not an addiction, it's an obsession. The difference between an addiction and an obsession is an addiction is having to do something. Sorry, an obsession is being addicted to something you don't want to do. I do not want to twitch. I'm trying very hard for these things, not to do these things. I'm fairly good at controlling them. I don't want to do any of these things. I don't want to have to check things time and time again. I don't want to have to drive back 40 miles to one place because something wasn't quite right. And I know it's so pointless, but I can't carry on with the rest of the week with it bugging me otherwise. So, what time are we on? 8 minutes. That's the difference. OCD is pretty evil. It is, it's like an addiction. It's like an addiction, but it's an obsession. It's wanting to do something you don't want to do, you don't enjoy, and it is no benefit to you at all, other than it just gets rid of the obsessive thought temporarily. Sorry, I digress. So those are some of the examples of physical tics. Now, examples of focal tics. Grunting, throat clearing, whistling, coughing. Yes, coughing's really annoying. Really, every time I talk about one of these things, I'm trying not to sort of, play it in my mind, because it will make me want to do it. And I'm determined not to do these things on here because it will really be very, very embarrassing for me. Tongue clicking, animal sounds. No. Saying random words and phrases, yeah, I mean, sometimes you just have to say something again, and it can be really insulting and annoying if you're with someone and you have to repeat something they've said because you know you have to do it. It's just repeating a sound, word or phrase. Swearing. Yeah, sometimes a swearing one, I think, Normally, I've found the swearing one, I'm so glad I don't struggle like some of the poor souls who have to swear continuously when they're in situations. I can understand what that must be like. I have found when I'm at a church or something quite high like that, and I may be talking to a vicar or someone quite godly, I have had to say the F word and then apologise afterwards, which does seem unusual. Maybe I should explain why I do it, but sometimes I'm not quite sure they'd understand. As I said earlier, swearing is rare and only affects about 1 in 10 people with Tourette's syndrome. Tics are not usually harmful to a person's overall health, but physical tics, such as jerking of the head, can be painful. And I said in one of my other videos, I would sort of do this with my head. I'm not going to do it. I just want to do it. Oh, God, damn, I want to do it now. I'm not going to do it. And you do it, and you do it further and strain your neck further and further and pull your muscle, and you have to do it again and again. And I'm not joking. The next day you can wake up with the worst neck ache, and I've had backache, I've had leg ache, I've had injuries from contorting myself and doing stupid things like this. That have given me real problems, and I sometimes don't even realise I'm doing it, and until it's a few days later and I've pulled a muscle. And people with Tourette's syndrome can have mood behavioural problems such as, well, they've said this already, attention deficit hyperactive disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder. And they can have depression and anxiety. Well, OCD is an anxiety, is classed as an anxiety disorder, so that's where the anxiety comes from. Depression, quite simply, comes from you really feel awful. You feel like you're not normal. You get picked on. You feel singled out. You're scared to go anywhere, especially when you're young and you just don't understand it. As you get older, you get a bit more resilient, but I'm still a sensitive soul. Children with Tourette's syndrome may also be at risk of bullying because the tics might single them out. Well, that's obvious, isn't it? If you've got young children, then I've been there, and I grew up when this wasn't really known, so it looked more like I had some strange problem. Premonitory sensations. Said it right, there we go. 12 minutes. I'm sorry this video's long. Try to make it short, but struggle with it. Nearly there. Most people with Tourette's syndrome experience a strong urge before a tic, which has been compared to the feeling you get before needing an itch or a sneeze. I would agree with that. That's definitely what it feels like. These feelings are known as premonitory sensations. Premonitory sensations are only relieved after the tic has been carried out. Yeah, about 20 times. Examples of these sensations, a burning feeling in the eyes before blinking, probably because you spent the whole day blinking. Dry sore throat before grunting, again because you've probably been doing it all day. An itchy joint or muscle before jerking. Yeah. Yeah. Again, because you've probably been doing it all day and it's starting to hurt. Some people can control their tics for a short while in certain social situations, like a classroom. It requires concentration but gets easier with practice. It doesn't get easier, but there's other ways you can make it easier, I've found. I'm doing all right. I've done 13 minutes so far. Controlling tics can be tiring. A person may have a sudden release of tics after a day trying to control them, like after returning home from school. Tics may be less noticeable during activities involving a high level of concentration, such as reading an interesting book or playing sports. Well, exactly. This is why I'm always busy. I never sit still. I'm always building, constructing, making, inventing, thinking, designing, watching, doing anything I can do to keep myself busy. Because when I am busy, I am not so bothered with these things. Because my mind is just preoccupied, basically. When to get medical advice? You should contact your GP if your child starts having tics. Many children have tics for several months before growing out of them. So tic does not necessarily mean your child has Tourette's syndrome. Well, you could go and look at the rest of that website if you want to. And that's summarised it the best I can. So I'll talk more about how I've struggled with these, and I am not diagnosed with Tourette's. I was borderline, So I really, really do have a lot of sympathy with people who have strong diagnosis or have Tourette's, you know, to a more severe level. It must be absolutely awful. And I've watched quite a few documentaries on it, so my heart goes out to those people because it's really truly upsetting for them. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you again.